All right, welcome everybody to our October Production Club workshop. My name is Ben Benar. I'm Communications Specialist here at BCAT. For those of you who don't know what BCAT is, we are a public access television station. So what that means is residents of Bloomington can become members for a small annual fee, take production classes in studio production. This is our studio. Field production, which you'll learn all the different cameras like the one we have there that are available for checkout, and post-production editing. And then after that, we're basically like a library. It's essentially free to use the facility as much as you want, so it's a really, really cool thing. Really cool opportunity to get involved with video production if you've never done it before, or to enhance your skills if you have, or if you just have an idea for a show that you'd like to do that you think the community would be interested in, anything like that. And this guy to my right is Dietrich Nissen.
Hi, I'm Dietrich. I am basically Ben's counterpart for the cities of Edina, Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, and Ridgefield. We don't have a cool studio like this one, so we partner up with BCAT to offer our residents an opportunity to use professional level video equipment and give them a chance to make shows they want to make. Yeah, I don't know, Ben, should we do quick updates before we start doing this?
Yeah, do you got any?
The only one no, I guess I don't. No, wait. Yeah. So Teen Video Boot Camp, we have somebody who was in it here. It's come back. So we're going to do it next year. Please sign up your teenager if they're between the age of 12 and 18, and maybe we'll let someone like 11.
We let in a couple of 11.
Yeah, we did. We're guilty. Sorry, we didn't follow the rules.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, oops. But
we don't have dates set yet for that specifically, but we still got to work that out. But we are bringing it back for sure.
Yeah.
At least one camp. So.
At least one.
Yeah, at least
maybe
one.
3. We'll see. We'll have to work that out. That was a lot. Yeah, other than that, I don't think there's any station update stuff from SWTV stuff. I won an Emmy, though, which is awesome. So thank you. I won an Emmy for a crime program I produced for the city of Edina, which was a big honor. It was a lifetime goal of mine. So that just, in my little world, was a big deal. But anyway, enough about me. Back to Ben.
And it was a really good piece, so you should look it up. I forget what it was called.
It's Beyond the Badge. Edina investigates Brock Orwig. Don't hurt me, Brock. He's out and about now. So anyway, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Go check it out. It's on Edina TV.
I'm sure he knows by now that you've won an Emmy.
I know. I'm so scared. Don't kill me with that Emmy.
But really, really good piece. You did an awesome job on it, so you should check it out. I have a few updates for BCAT. One is next week on Wednesday, I am attending a tech expo during the day. So we're going to be closed all day that day. Otherwise, I'd be working like a 16-hour day, and I'm not going to do that. So we're just closing. So we are not open Wednesday, October 24th. Speaking of lighting demonstration that we're going to do here tonight, I have ordered a brand new LED light kit that will be available to check out in the field. That's going to be really awesome. It's battery powered, and it's got a bunch of cool presets and stuff in it. I was hoping it would be here for this, but it's on back order, so unfortunately it's not here yet, but hopefully soon we'll be getting that. I also recently ordered a new field production switcher, so that allows you to basically do what you can do in the studio here, but out in the field. It's going to be a little bit to set up, but it's like a super small little switcher. It's really, really cool, but it can do all the same stuff. It has 4 inputs for 4 different cameras, and you can switch between the cameras live. So if you have any ideas for like a big event or something that you want to cover out in the field, it's going to be awesome for that. I just got all the components in at the end of last week, so I'm still piecing the actual kit together for it, and once I have that all together and making sure that it works, then I am going to I'll probably call it like a production club workshop type of thing, but it'll be an offshoot of the ones we regularly do, just for our members to show them how to use that. So if you're at all interested in that, keep an eye out in your email and stuff for updates on that. I'm also going to be ordering some other equipment at some point before the end of the year. I've got somebody who is hopefully going to be able to build some risers so we can do like a raised floor in here, which will be really, really nice for our green screen. I'm also looking to extend out our green screen a little bit. And this guy is hopefully also going to be able to make a desk, so we'll be able to have like a new style desk that can be configured multiple different ways. So hopefully, I know that that's a big deal, is having your set look different from other sets. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to build this so we can do like at least 4 different configurations for this desk, which will be nice. And then some other equipment too that hopefully going to be able to get in before the end of the year. So. Again, keep an eye on your email for that. I'll email our current members, and then I'll also put information in the monthly newsletter for BCAT, so you can sign up for that newsletter if you aren't already signed up. And then lastly, our next production club workshop is really more of a party. We're going to have an end of the year party like we did last year. That's really just open to our members, but I guess anybody can come if they want to come. It's going to be Thursday, December 6th. At 7 o'clock, so it's just going to be kind of a fun time hanging out, playing some games.
Punch and pie.
Yeah, punch and pie.
Punch pie.
Just a way to say thank you to all of our members for being members and doing your show here. So that's all I've got. Like I mentioned, we are here tonight to talk about lighting. 3-point lighting and cinematic lighting. Is what Erik Johnson is going to talk about. And Erik is actually, he was my professor at the University of Wisconsin River Falls. He still teaches there. You teach film, right? Film stuff. I'm not sure what the actual. I know the name of the department has changed since I left to Stage and Screen Arts. So I know that's different, but I don't know what the actual major is anymore.
Film and stuff.
Film and stuff. Film and TV. I was a film and TV communications major. That was my major, but I think it's changed a bit. But anyway, he teaches at UW River Falls as well as the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. Right? Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, Erik Johnson, everybody.
Well, thanks for that, Ben. Yeah, it's like a trip down memory lane here. You know, coming to see Ben again. It's been a little while. I think the last time we met was at a different thing in one of my extracurricular activities. I play in a few bands, and Ben came to one of our concerts to do photography.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That was like 3-4 years ago.
Oof! Wow, time flies. Yeah. So let me just give you a little more background about me. This is me. So I am an associate professor of what was called formerly digital film and television, and we rebranded to Stage and Screen Arts, but I'm the screen side of that equation. And it's essentially film production with some media literacy and film history and everything kind of screen related. And my background in terms of academics, I have a BFA and an MFA from Minneapolis College of Art and Design, which that's how I got into this whole thing, was through art. I was an artist and a musician and went to art school, and they had us do every aspect of arts, which included what they called media arts, which was film, photography, and video. And I had very limited experience with that, but once I got my hands on this motion picture technology, I found my calling. And it was a way that I could express myself creatively and still have a viable career path, as opposed to being a starving artist. I mean, you know, we need starving artists too, but for me, that was my calling. Following graduating from MCAD as an undergrad, my first job out of the gate was in community television. And so that's another interesting part of me being here, is it's, you know, kind of come full circle. And let's see. Well, I'll give you a little spiel and then I'll show you the visuals, because I'm a visual person. So some of the things that I've done in my career, I'm a documentary filmmaker. My work has appeared on PBS, worked in television and video for over 20 years, including I was an owner of a video production business, producer of a television series, segment producer for a variety magazine series, and currently produce music videos, commercials, and a skate punk web series. And in terms of the community television part, so I spent 13 years working in community television in a variety of capacities, including production operations manager with Town Square Television in Inver Grove Heights, suburban community channels in White Bear Lake as a mobile production director, and CTV in Roseville as an editing instructor. And I still have, I mean, aside from this, I still have one little foot in the door with community television as an executive producer of a community television show with SPNN. So my friend Ben and his girlfriend asked me to be a kind of a consultant because they'd never done any video before, and they're really creative people. And it was just a joy to me to help them and empower them. And they make this great show called The Milk Show, which is about a possessed refrigerator that interviews bands. Puppet, that is. Prior to or after kind of working in the business, sometimes things happen in life that you just never know. So I have twin boys that they're 20 now, but at the time they were little kids. Speaking of kids camp, so they went to MCAT for a kids art camp, and I ran into a former advisor and mentor of mine that I hadn't seen for years. His name's Tom DiBiaso, and got to talking. Hey, what have you been up to? And I said, oh, I'm working in community television, and it's great. And I teach classes, and I did production, and then all those other things on the side. And he said, hey, have you ever thought of coming back to school and or getting into teaching in a higher ed capacity? And I said, no, I haven't, because back when I was in school, even beyond before college, I probably would have been voted least likely to do what I'm doing now. So it was interesting that one thing led to another. I got a pretty generous scholarship, and for 2 years I worked full time, went to school full time, and I had two main goals. One was to get into documentary filmmaking, which prior to that, working in a TV format, there was lots of stories that I was able to tell, but short form, which is still very interesting to me. It's kind of come full circle, but I knew a lot of the times there was more to the story. So documentary filmmaking was a total new thing for me, and it took a lot more work and time, but I really wanted to get that experience. And then the second goal was to get into teaching. And so prior to finishing out my MFA degree, I was hired to work at MCAD and got my foot in the door, and it couldn't have worked out any better because I finished up my degree and I worked in the media department. So I had access to all the cool film stuff and gear, anything that I needed, and I was also helping other students use the same thing. Well, that was cool, but it wasn't my true calling and passion because I really loved to teach, and I did a little bit of workshops here and there, but it wasn't one-on-one kind of the interaction that I was looking forward to. And so I was on these web search things, and this place that I'd never heard of before called University of Wisconsin River Falls popped up on the page. I thought, oh, I've never heard of that. Wisconsin, that sounds like a far way away. And I put my application in, and to my surprise, hey, we'd like to call you in for an interview. And I found that it wasn't really that far. It was, if you've heard of Hudson, Wisconsin, which is right across the border from Woodbury, it's about 10 minutes from there. So I went out there, and it was just a beautiful time of year. It was late in the summer, and I met the people, and they said, well, our building's under construction, and let's go for a little walk in the park. I mean, they had this little park thing, Ben, you probably remember it. And then they said, oh yeah, well, congratulations, we'd like to hire you. And but they didn't tell me you start in less than a week, and good luck. And so this is my first real teaching gig, and I walk into class, and it was 50 students, and I'd never been in a class that big, let alone teach one, and it was history of film. So back then I walk up to the front, and my whole class rested upon my ability to show these videos and DVDs for this film class. And I realized that they didn't issue me the key to open the cart, and I had all these eyes, just burning into me, and I'm nervous, and I said a little joke and ran out the door and found my key, and then it went all downhill from there. But it's really been a pleasure. I've been with UW River Falls for 10 years. I just received 10-year TENURE after 10 years. I mean, it's even though they don't, those two things don't really match necessarily, it just worked out that way for me. And yeah, it's really great. And I've had a chance to practice what I teach, which to me that's really, I couldn't teach what I teach without having real world experience like this. And this is another trip down memory lane. So some of these amazing experiences have included, aside from classroom time, doing some special projects. So this is Ben and me in the middle with a documentary production crew on social issue of homelessness. So we went out to Cincinnati for a week with this destination, and boy, it's funny because I hadn't thought of this until this week. It's come up in conversation 3 times, and I got this old hard drive with all these great photos. I'll have to share some with you, Ben.
Yeah.
But it was so gratifying, and the context of the conversation was that sometimes in life we're paid not just monetarily, but with experience. And a lot of times that experience, you don't know how it will manifest itself later on in life. And this was one of those times where it was a lot of work, but we learned so much, and we were so close, and
we were threatened that we were going to get shot.
yeah, we were threatened we were going to get shot. Mrs. Booger Love here,
Mrs. Booger
he was
Love.
one of the activists, and
that's what he
that
told
was his
us
real
name
name.
is.
Or his
Booger Love.
name.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it.
But it's one of those things where oftentimes, truth is stranger than fiction.
We still haven't made the full-length documentary either.
That's right. I have all the
We made a
tapes
short
and the
one.
footage, right? But one of the things too that I think is important in life and especially in production is not only the product but the process. It's what do you learn along the way and working in progress. So that kind of is the crux of this demo. We're going to learn by doing, because there's no one way of doing things. It's life and production in particular is a combination of different sources, and learning through experience, because the old saying, experience can be the best teacher, I think is really where it's at. And fortunately for me, I've really had a lot of great opportunities to do what I love. And back to the web series, that's my passion project. I was a independent producer for 2 years on a local broadcast affiliate. And that wasn't really a paid gig. I got paid in cool trade stuff like skateboard decks and clothes and stuff. But that was something I was passionate. So I got to meet my heroes like Tony Hawk and all these bands. And in my work at UW River Falls, I'm supposed to do what they call creative research. So I've done a lot of socially conscious things, like work with the United Way and local school districts and things like that. But my team, my panel of tenure people said, well, it's great that you do that, but you got to find something that you're really passionate about. So speaking of tapes, I had all these boxes and boxes of tapes that I shot interviews with that never made it to air because the show got canceled before I was able to do that. And I thought, well, I kind of owe it to these people to share their story. So I dusted off the old mini DV deck and captured a bunch, and then I hit the road and went out to California about 4 times, and it's full speed and no stopping in sight. And it's really gratifying to kind of have that experience and meet people and share their stories. So with that, I think we'll launch into what I'm here to talk about. Enough about me. I do have some other shameless self-promotion things that I'm going to be sharing with you later if you're interested, because that's what I do. I mean, to share the fun. So let's get into some 3-point lighting. So I've got a couple of videos, and nowadays you can find anything out about video, and hopefully it's cool to play these because they weren't my videos, I didn't produce them, but they're a teaching tool. And the things that we're going to be learning in this short video, we're going to be practicing. So let's go ahead and play the one about 3-point lighting. And they'll get their advertising in here too, so I'm sure it'll be all reciprocal. Oops.
In this lesson of Frame Forest Film School, we're going to show you how to use 3 simple lights to do a 3-point lighting setup. So if you want to light a headshot or maybe an interview, this is going to show you some of the basic lighting principles to make your shots look better. In 3-point lighting, there are 3 lights: a key light, a fill light, and a backlight. In this video, we will also show you some tips on adding more life to the background. Well, let's get started. Here we have our talent in front of a black background in the studio. We are going to start off by turning off our lights in the ceiling. Then we're going to turn on our first light, the key light. The key light is a 650-watt tungsten lamp with a diffusion gel to make the light softer. The key light is the strongest light in the setup and is our main light source. The key light is placed at the side of the camera in a 20 to 45 degree angle. The second light is our fill light. The fill light fills in darkness and shadows on the opposite side of the key light and gives much more even lighting. The fill light is normally only up to 50% as powerful as the key light. You can achieve this by using a less powerful light, move the light further away from the subject, or adding more diffusion gels to it. Here we turn our fill light on and off to demonstrate the effect. The last light in the 3-point lighting setup is the backlight. The backlight is placed behind the talent and creates a kind of halo effect around the edges of the subject. The backlight is separating our talent from the background and is highlighting the contours. Here we turn our backlight on and off to demonstrate the effect. So this is the 3 basic steps in creating 3-point lighting. But in addition to the 3 lights to light your subject, you can also light up the background to it to make the picture even better. So what we're going to do here is add a bright 2 kilowatt tungsten lamp with a colored gel on it to make a splash of color on our black background. So here you can see now we added a little bit of blue color behind her. By using the barn doors on the lamp, we can kind of shape it into a shaft of light, which is a cool effect. Changing the color and shape of the background light, you can create different moods for your scenes. And here we turn our background light on and off to show the improvement to the shot. Let's take a look at some before and after shots. So this was our talent with just the natural room light from the ceiling. And this is after. As you see, 3-point lighting creates much more depth in your shots and creates different moods. I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching. Also check out our other film school videos, as well as our free stock footage collection and blog here at frameforest.com. Okay, so that's it. Stay tuned for more. Goodbye.
All right, thanks a lot, Frameforest. We appreciate it. So one of the things that they brought up with this that I think is definitely a point to make is that lighting helps develop more dimensionality to this fairly flat medium of video, and that way we're able to take a 3-dimensional object and make it appear more dimensional and pop from the background. And this is kind of art related, in terms of separating your foreground, your midground, and your background. I mean, if you look at paintings, that's kind of a technique that's used in 2-dimensional artwork. But the same kind of thing can be applied to video. So this 3-point lighting, even though there's 3 lights, or 4 if you include the background light, can be applied to your talking head interview, which is what I primarily used it for, because that's documentary and talking head, as we call it in the biz, is a lot of what I do. But it's just taking a talking head, and it can be anyone and everyone, and just making them more dimensional and visually interesting. So I think what we'll do at this point is try it out. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's do it.
Cool.
All right.
So Ben, if it's okay with you, maybe we can just move this over just a little bit.
The TV too?
Yeah, the TV too, just to create a little more space. I mean, I want to keep that TV handy, but so we can kind of plug it into the. Yeah, perfect.
See what we're shooting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cool.
Hopefully this is long enough cable.
Or we can move
just
the
move
camera. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
We're gonna shoot this way.
would it be possible to grab one of these chairs here and put it kind of in?
Should we use an
someone's-
executive chair?
No.
No?
And you want me to tell you why?
Yes.
All right, bring it up here. I'll show
No,
you
no,
why.
no. This is a good learning.
Yeah.
Roll.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little anecdote here, and this is something that I tested in the field.
Okay.
Okay, so you get your subject in place, and you set them up, you're lighting them, you're miking them up, and then we start. And then you know what the natural tendency of anybody in a chair like that is?
They move.
They roll all around.
They gotta shake.
Swivel all around.
They
Yeah.
gotta move.
And I've interviewed everyone from the most eloquent professional speakers that you can imagine, and every time.
Get out.
So there we go.
Rolling
Lock
chair.
it down. You want to have a static chair, and that way you know your subject is not going anywhere.
Should we? Which direction would you like them?
Whoa, let's turn that on, dude.
Hello.
Well, yeah, that right there, that should be just fine.
Okay.
So,
Here. I'll step down.
and can we get a subject? I mean, we're all friends here, right?
Who wants to volunteer?
I'll start.
Thank
Yeah, all right. Woo!
Good job, Mom. Sitting. I'm good at it.
So we've got some really great lights here. I'm a big fan of the Lowell light kits. These are really industry standard and workhorses. I mean, these are designed to really take a lot of wear and tear, but also deliver the quality that you need. But like anything, well, in life, but with lighting in particular, you want to be safe. So you don't want to burn yourself. And one of the things, like I mentioned, I wouldn't be able to teach what I teach if it weren't for these kind of experiences. I'm not going to, take my shirt off, but I've got a big scar right here from a time that I saved someone's life from a burning light. It was in a studio like this. I was up on the ladder, and somebody didn't put the safety chain on, and it was just like one of those slow motion moments when the person was, seated. No! And then it went, and my arm was more expendable than the person, so it wasn't, but it was a reminder that we need to be safe. So I recommend, if you're working with lights like this, I didn't bring my safety gloves, which I should have.
We have some.
But you have some, so there we go. So it's just one of those things with this type of lighting. It is hot because it's the nature of the kind of light bulb that's in it, and the fact that it's you're plugging it into a live outlet. So you just want to be conscious about not only perfect, thank you. You want to be conscious of where the light is set up, and also how the stand is placed, because the last thing you want to do is trip over it and have an accident like that. So you always want to be aware of your surroundings. The other thing, before I pop the light on, I just wanted to talk about in terms of surroundings is your space. So the more space you have, the better with regards to lighting, because of the fact that you want it to be dimensional. You want a clear separation of the background, your subject, and that having that space is that's ideal. A lot of students that I've had in my classes that don't know. You have their subjects back up against the wall, and oftentimes it's a white wall. And I said, well, this is really unflattering. It looks like a mugshot in a juvenile detention facility or something. It's like, no, you want to pull them forward from the wall, and then separate make that clear separation. The other thing, just like our video, that's a common mistake, is no lighting at all, or kind of your stock fluorescent lighting in an office space. And there's nothing more unflattering than flat top-down light. It just accentuates the details that you don't want your audience to see, right? So anyway, let's get to lighting here now. Do you guys have any? You've got that softbox, but
You want like an umbrella or
an
something?
umbrella, yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah,
Anything you need.
Oh, right there, perfect. Okay.
Better
Yeah,
reflection.
that'd be just exactly right here. So I'll turn this light on and you'll see what I'm talking about. But these lights, as good as they are extremely bright and powerful, which is great. But sometimes, like we were talking earlier, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. So you don't want to blind your subject, and they don't need to go into like the tanning, turning into a tanning lab or something. So this is called a reflector, and it's shaped like an umbrella. It's actually an umbrella, not the kind that you take out in the rain. But the inside of it has a shiny reflective surface. So how we're going to use this is actually once I put this in place here, we're going to turn it around. And the way this works is you kind of have to find the sweet spot here in between what we call the barn doors, and then get it into place and tighten it down. So that way you can kind of control where it goes and use it as a reflector. Let's see, let's get this one going anywhere. Before I turn this on, I also want to point out this part here called the barn doors. And this is just something that allows you to mask the light of where you want it to go and also where you don't want it to go. One of the things that we'll get into in some more detail is not only light but shadows, because both of those things are important to control. And I always tell my students working in film and television that you want to keep the magic alive. You don't want to reveal the background or show things that you don't intend the audience to see. So therefore, light and shadow are equally as important. To control where the light is aimed, and also that shadow part, and have kind of a balance. So okay, let's tighten that down so it's not going anywhere. Get that in place. That looks good. And then the other thing is called the altitude. So I don't know if you've got into framing and stuff like that. Maybe we can address a little bit of that here. But there's a psychology to your shots, and this I'm gonna we'll demonstrate this soon. But I just want to point this out. So have you ever heard the term "we see eye to eye"?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Level. Equal in value. You see what they see, so you're easily relatable.
Absolutely. And that is also psychologically transfers to a visual perspective.
Mm-hmm.
How about the term "I look down on them"?
Right.
Have you heard of that? What does that mean?
Condescending.
Condescending.
They're inferior.
They're inferior. We're
Yeah.
looking down on them. They're belittled. Conversely, how about "I look up to them"? Hero, exactly.
Powerful.
So this transfers visually to the altitude and placement of the camera. And a good point of reference for the person, the human, is their eyes. So that looking eye to eye, up or down, in the person's eye placement is very important in how you communicate either explicitly or implicitly, how you want the audience to perceive that person. So, like what? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right here.
What's that?
So the interview is basically the desired position. If you take that screen and cut it into 3 equal parts horizontally, it's called the rule of thirds, and you want to have the person's eyes in the top third of the screen. And this is that psychological idea of seeing eye to eye. So when your audience sees this interview and the person's eyes are essentially at the same level that they are, it's much more comforting. It's much more believable. It's like we're sitting down, we're having a conversation. Right now I'm standing up and our subject is looking up. That's another thing that when I do my own interviews, I try to sit down, because if I'm see the eyes are following just like that, people perceive that. It's like, hey, you're awesome, you're the best. So you want to make sure that when you're, where the person's looking is important. One last thing before we get to the light, because it's just all in the framing, is this other thing called look room. So look room is something that we want to include to imply that the person is looking off camera at somebody else. And there are 2, more than 2, but 2 that come to mind, examples of when a person is looking directly at the camera in terms of format. Used car salesperson and politician. So if you're trying to sell something, then you want to look right at, or professional wrestler, I should have added that one. But most of the time, you're looking at somebody off camera, and you want to imply that it's not just them looking, directly at the audience. It's they're having a conversation with somebody that is off camera that is not seen. And so, having some look room. I'm just going to move this over slightly so we can get some look room. Is desirable. So I would be sitting over here, and the look room is on the side of the person of where they're looking towards. So that, again, it's that kind of a psychological reinforcement that, we're having a conversation. And for me, almost all of my work, with the exception of when I worked in news for a little while with the on-air talent, has been first person. I am never in it. I've invented an alter ego for a few times when I've had to be in front of the camera, which hardly ever happens. But for the most part, you want to frame it so that it's conversational, but it's them, talking to somebody that is off camera. Okay, so we talked about framing and eyes in the top third of the screen. The other thing that applies to that similar principle is the altitude of the lights. Altitude is how up and down the lights are, and we'll play around with that a little bit to kind of see the different types of effects. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this one in, and I'm safe here because it's not aimed towards the person's face without the reflector, because that could be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, I have had a lot of practice, as you've seen in my earlier biography, and I want to definitely share this fun with you. So I'm going to be doing this first part, but then I need some hands-on action for all you folks to help me practice and get it done. Okay, so are we on? Right. We're live there. So this particular model has the switch in the back. So we turn that on, and now we're illuminated. So would it be possible to cut the overheads?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, great. Ooh, fantastic. So this is very dramatic kind of lighting, and we'll get into it once we're done with the 3-point. I mean, depending upon time, I do want to touch on some more dramatic film effects too. But this is desirable. This is another, thing that you can include to not only make that dimensionality pop, but just bring more intrigue and interest to the way that a person looks. So
The way the light bounces off your face, you look very
menacing.
Yeah, menacing, like
exactly.
Indiana Jones style.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's one of the lighting techniques. We'll get to that soon. Right. Okay. So we talked about the altitude of the light. So let's see. I've got to think about. There's another technique that I want to share. So I'm going to switch this around slightly. And would you mind? I mean, because this cable isn't quite long enough, but could you shift your body and look that way? Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to put my key light on the other side, and we're going to move this kind of reflect that. Okay, so now we've got our.
It's locked.
Oh no, that's okay. Thank you. So now we've changed that, and as you can see, the difference between light and shadow is significant, right? I mean, it's still, even with this deflection, it's pretty drastic. It's dramatic, and if you're going for a dramatic kind of a effect, this is desirable. Would you mind just turning the overheads on just real quick again? I just want to kind of show just even the difference with using a key light in a setting where you've got some overhead. So I'm just going to turn this off. All right, so remember we saw that before and after. So here's the flat, kind of unflattering, top-down fluorescent. So, I mean,
Purple images.
yeah, and even the color temperature and things kind of change depending upon the quality of the light. So now we'll turn on this warmer light and see how it just helps that whole dimensionality pop. So if you're in a situation, like from a lot of the work that I do that's in the field, I don't have the luxury of setting up a lot of lights ahead of time. It's what we call turn and burn. So I'm in an interview setup, and I sometimes have a small, if I can only have one light, it's definitely a key light. And just having one key light slightly off center is way more aesthetically pleasing and brings up that level of production value significantly as opposed to what we saw just with the overheads.
Erik, how do you get rid of, and for instance, folks who have glasses, sometimes
Yes.
there's a reflection of the light in the glasses.
Absolutely.
Is there a way to get rid of that?
Can we get somebody with glasses to come up here for a moment?
Come on, you two, let's go.
Well, that, or I mean,
Well,
they
may I
couldn't see then,
borrow your glass?
but
Yeah, I was
that is an
saying.
excellent, that's an excellent question, something that, people like me and
Yes.
90% of the population deals with.
Yep.
So, we've got, you've got one of two options. You've got kind of this invisible line of where you don't want the person to turn their head, because over here, so if you look over there, no problem, right? Look over here, oh, you're in the headlights. Yeah. So the other, I mean, that's one way of doing it, of positioning your light and looking, where's that magic cutoff in, reflection, non-reflection. The other one is the altitude of the light. So bringing the light up. So we're going to go with this light stand and bring it up and see how we're able to kind of alleviate that possible reflection. So now you can look over here, look over there. Bam, nailed it. So right there, just by that elevation, because right now the light isn't glasses level, and just that angle helps to alleviate that glare problem. So yeah, fantastic.
That's cool.
Okay.
Tag
so,
team back. If you want to.
Hey, you want to tag team back, or
Yep.
you cool? All right.
You have to high five though. That's like
Yeah,
half
high
the fun.
five.
Okay,
Here we
high
go.
fives. All right.
I was
Okay.
high-fiving you.
So I'm going to you can I'm gonna just reposition again, because
Sure.
I want to touch upon another interesting and important concept called shadowed side to camera. So to get shadowed side to camera, could you just kind of tilt over just a little bit this way? Again, just because I don't want to move everything. But okay, now can we cut the overheads again, please? All right. So this is the desired position for this. If you've only got one light, and we're going to have more lights, but I'm just saying for the key light, the shadowed side to camera. So this is another kind of psychological perspective on how we see people's the different sides of their face. So the shadowed side, if you were to look, if you can just keep looking over here, or pretend I'm there. I just want to point this out for a moment. So if we're looking at the face here, there's a side that's brighter and a side that's slightly more shadowed. And if you were to measure what side of their face is closer to the camera, it would be this side. Even though, you're not the term two-faced, we're not going for that, but there's a differentiation between the lighter side and the darker side. So the shadowed side to camera is more aesthetically pleasing. It has that dimensionality, and if we were to go the other side, it has that kind of deer in the headlights or exposed, overlit kind of effect. And this is something that actually comes out of the theater too, upstage and downstage, if you've ever heard of that. And that's a lighting technique that is used on stage to keep that kind of dimensionality and the shadowed side closer to the camera, so that when you see, this type of effect, it's aesthetically pleasing. It just looks, it's like magic, it just looks better. And having a lighter side and a darker side also helps to create that space. So that is key light, shadowed side to camera, with some look room and eyes in the top third of the screen. The other, I'm throwing a lot out there at you, and you can take and leave as much as you like, but I'm going to include one other classic lighting definition. So if you have somebody in front of a black background or a dark background, that's what they call cameo lighting. And cameo is this old school like jewelry piece where it was almost like a silhouette, or you've got a bright foreground and a dark background, and usually it's a person's face, and that's where they get that from. And this is a very classic lighting technique. It looks great. It pops. And the other thing about it is the background, especially with talking head, isn't always important. It isn't always contextual. you're in a studio, you're in a space that it doesn't matter where you are. What matters is what you're saying and who the person is. And I'm also a big what they call a B-roll proponent. B-roll is contextual footage that you shoot that reinforces the story. So as great as lighting, I mean, you want them to look as nice as they can aesthetically, but if you can have that contextual footage, that's always going to win over the talking head.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're well, never mind. Yeah.
No, go there.
Yeah, I won't go there. All right. So, any questions on the key light? Make sense? All right. Now we're going to add another light. So if you are limited in your light instruments, key light definitely is the if you've only got one light, you want a key light. The other thing I want to point this out so it makes a point is the position of the light versus the camera. It should be about a 45-degree angle away from the camera, so you get that angle. So it's not right directly on the person. This is something that back in the day when I worked in news and doing on location stuff, there was a camera that you'd put on the top of the light called a sun gun, and it was kind of like investigative reporting, like Geraldo or something, and it looked very exposing and not really aesthetically pleasing. So what I ended up doing is, after getting a piece of diffusion material, is taking it off of, this is called a hot shoe on the top, and just putting it off to one side of the camera or another to get that angle, because it just makes it more a shadow and a light part, and have that difference between the two. So anyway,
So
yeah.
would you say these are 45?
Yeah, they're about.
Yeah.
They're about 45. So the second part of the second piece of the puzzle when it comes to dimensional lighting is what we call the backlight. And the backlight, let's see, I think I'm going to move it over here. So a good way to kind of remember placement is have it be the opposite of where the key light is. So if it was on that side, it would be over here. Since it's over here, we'd like to place it the opposite on this side. I think I'm going to try the softbox, because I try to avoid what some people call, or I guess some people, me, weirdo, RES, red ear syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
It happens when you get the backlight too close to the person, and it makes it look like their ears are on fire.
Yeah, have you ever used one of those flashlights, the pen lights, as kids?
Yeah.
And you put the light behind your ear and it kind of glows? That's exactly it.
You got it.
Same concept.
Yep. All right. So the other reason I chose this one for now, and what I'd like to do, I mean, if we've got time, Ben, you kind of keep me, if you can give me an update if I'm running late or whatever, but I want to give people a chance to try this, because I think really, one thing I learned when I went to grad school is about teaching and about learning styles. Everyone has a different way of learning. And for me, I've always been a hands-on, experiential learner. And there's people that learn better through reading or listening, but I like to kind of mix that up a little bit, so you will get a chance to do this. All right, so now what I want to do is turn this light on. This one in particular has the inline switch. It's built right into the cord here. So I'm going to turn that on. And
Ooh.
can I get a volunteer? Can I get somebody to come up here, please? Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah,
Right this way.
Mia!
All right. So what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is come right over here, and I want you to turn that off right now, and then turn it back on in just a moment. I want to see what's going on here. All right. So could you just walk over there just a little bit? So perfect. Yes. Keeping the magic alive. Okay. Now turn it on, please. All right. So what we've got going on here is there's definitely some additional dimensionality going on with this part of the. or I'm going to come over here and point at the screen. So this is called a rim light or a hair light, in addition to a backlight. And what we're highlighting is this part of the shoulder and hair, and that is a separation from the person in the background.
See this.
Now the problem or the
Oh, you can
challenge,
see it good.
the challenge that we have going on is that we've got some spillage. So we're also lighting the background, which, you know, I mean, it's not horrible, but I see some RES going on here. You know, that ear's looking a little hot. So let's try to see if we can alleviate some of that. And you know, basically with lighting like this is constant lighting. So it's, you know, when you turn it on, it's on, and when it's off, it's off. So to try to figure out how to control that is either use, like, that is a reflector, and this one is a soft box, so it's diffusing, it's shooting through, and it's softening that level of light. But it's still, you know, it's powerful. I mean, it's hot, and so to adjust that even more, if you can, you use the space. You move the light back farther. So would you be comfortable with moving that light back, like towards that way? Yep, keep going.
Woo.
Or how about over this way a little bit? And
Move the
maybe,
TV too.
Yeah, we can move.
are we out of cord here?
Nope.
There we
Yeah,
go.
yep.
We got it. So, and then in addition to moving it back, let's angle it this way a little more. Yeah, just
Is that enough room?
rotate it around
What do you think, Ben? Oh.
like that. Okay, so I'm gonna go in front of the screen and I'll
Yeah.
see how it looks. Okay. So could you angle, like, even go that way a little bit more with it, please? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So what we've done here, you know, it's a very simple twist. I mean, we haven't really, you know, it's the same light, but just moving it a little from this side to that side has softened that harsh line a little bit more. There's still a separation. Now, granted, we're lighting up the background, but in this case, I think it actually improves the look. I mean, if we were going for absolute cameo lighting, maybe it would be a different story, but I think having this curtain and the fact that the curtain actually has some texture to it also is nice. It's a nice effect because, it shows there's light and darkness. And would you mind, could you turn that off, please? Okay, so here we're back to the cameo. I mean, it's dramatic and it's interesting, but if you could turn that on, now we've got a separation. We've got, you know, there's even more pop from the edge of our subject here from the background. So it just looks more three-dimensional, you know, and that's the point of using a backlight. So it's 45 degrees. Now, granted, part of the deal, I mean, the reason that we moved it is because if you measured, I think that light's closer to the subject than that one, and especially because of the diffusion versus the reflection. So using, you know, rotating around and not having that direct, harsh lighting is definitely an advantage.
Eric, are there any ways to, let's just say you don't have an umbrella or one of the diffusers, is there a way to bounce the light that you would
Absolutely.
recommend? Okay.
So in the biz, everything that's film and video related, usually, I mean, you can usually buy something like that, and usually it has a pretty big price tag on it. But you can also get resourceful in using everyday items. I mean, if you want a reflector or something that reflects light, you can use a piece of foam core or a piece of paper.
Hey!
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, we got the foam core. Perfect.
Boom.
So this, it's white, and it reflects.
Ben, I kind of want to take a video of that.
Yeah. So
Not
this
really
is a way that,
much.
no, this is perfect. So in fact, what Ben is doing here is adding some fill, and that would be the third part of the 3-point lighting. So now what you can see is more of the face is lit up, the shadows aren't as harsh, they're not as drastic, and it's more even. And that is using that light. Yeah, there's before, there's after.
A little bit.
So it's not
Well,
huge,
it's
but
not
it's
huge,
it's
but-
something. And you can, depending upon how you rotate that, up, down, side to side, you can aim it at a different part of the subject. But, like you're getting at, there's a lot of ways of getting a desirable effect with just simple household or consumer grade craft items. The other variation of this is if you are outside and you're not using light, you're using the sun. This is something that, one of the most gratifying experiences when I worked in community television was I shot a history segment. It's called 90 Seconds to Local History, and in 10 years we did 400 and some segments. They were mostly always outdoors, and it was always on location. And the biggest challenge was lighting, and the historian had to do what we call a stand-up. So he had to stand up in front of wherever the historical site was, and it didn't matter where the sun was. He was going to stand there. So my challenge was that I didn't want him to be, backlit. In fact, let me give you a little demonstration on has anyone seen Gangland or
Yes.
Witness Protection Program?
Let's do it. Oh, there she is.
There you go.
So
Tell me.
yeah.
Your involvement with the cartel.
So this is something that you could if you wanted to. This is called a silhouette lighting. If you wanted to hide the person's identity, have we seen this before? You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's how you get this effect. Ben, could I see that bounce card once
Yep.
more, please? So
I was going to mention with these bounce cards real quick too, you don't have to have a person there holding it the whole time.
Yes.
We have different, the stands that we have available here that you could use is pretty much just a microphone stand, but we do have clips. You could just put a microphone stand up and clip that board on there. And that would work the same, but you don't have to have someone standing or kneeling there for half
We
hour
almost
while
know
you're
your
doing it.
identity.
yeah.
If
that's
only
right.
he would move the bounce card.
Right. So there you go. So my point to the story about the historian is I ended up getting a bounce card so that when we only had the sun, I could at least try to counteract that with some reflective surfaces. So that really goes a long way.
And we here have a reflector set as well, which works really well for doing stuff outside. It can almost be too bright sometimes if you are too close with it. It really it creates kind of a harsh reflection on the face, so you don't want to get too close with it, but that works better than a bounce card in some situations. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have the ones that have the different surfaces, like the
Yep.
silver and the gold?
Yep.
And, yeah.
And
Yep,
what are
we
the
got
differences
some.
between those two surfaces then? Silver or gold? When would you use one versus the other maybe?
Well, I think a lot of it's aesthetic. So if you're going for a warmer tone, and it also has to do with the kind of lights that you're working with, but that gold tone, it gives a golder tone. I mean, it's a warmer tone. The silver is a cooler kind of aesthetic, and and the white is just what it is. But I think sometimes it is nice to have some different options for that. And it's interesting because a lot of these things are real, kind of basic, like that reflector kind of thing. But I see it used time and again in really huge, big end productions. So I just got done watching Marvel's Iron Fist season 2 on Netflix, and it's action but the lighting is just gorgeous. And one of the last scenes of the final episode was using reflections like that. It was set in kind of a warehouse type of place. And it probably was just a set, like a movie set, but using a reflector and they had a bunch of movement with the light, so it was just amazing. You'll have to look it up, but at any rate, using reflectors definitely help to, not only shine lights on your subject, but also illuminate the background and show your audience different details that you want them to take notice of. So any questions so far? All right, maybe we should introduce the fill light just to kind of give you a point of reference. Now this is a reflector, which can serve as a fill. Not super bright or anything like that, but does the trick. I mean, you could see the difference a little bit. It wasn't super significant. But let's just introduce the fill light and kind of show what using something like that would be. And then we'll go with the background light after that. I'm going to grab another umbrella out here. And how about, can I get somebody else to get some hands-on time here? I mean, like I said, I've done this a lot. I like to share the fun.
Come on, guys. You're
Yeah, okay.
here.
Yeah, cool.
You only live once.
All right.
You got this.
So a lot of this stuff, you know, it's just getting your hands on and doing some creative problem solving, because sometimes things don't always, you know, work as they're designed, or you have to figure out, you know, what's the sweet spot on it. And yeah, and like that one, you find the location, and you've probably got to loosen that screw up a little bit to hold it in place. And you know, again, like this one, it's basically you're shooting as a reflector. But how about this? While we're waiting for him to set that one up, could you just close your eyes for a moment, because I don't want to blind you, but I just want to show you or to see if this would work. Shoot,
be careful. That's gonna be hot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Gloves right behind you.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want you to burn your hands.
No.
Be like, oh no.
But let's just see now. This light, you can also shoot through as an extreme reflector.
That's pretty.
But isn't that
yeah, it's gentle.
softer, and yeah, it's got a warm, rich tone to it. So the umbrellas really have a lot of flexibility in terms of a reflector and also a diffusion device. Okay, great. You can close your eyes once more, please, and I'm gonna turn it back around as we had it before.
A little stuck.
And to Eric's point, guys, just so you know, like outside of my work for Edina, this is exactly what I bring with me on a shoot. I usually don't bring other lights. I'll just bring one light with an umbrella, and it serves, like he said, as a key, but you can use it in so many ways.
Absolutely.
That it's so versatile.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, I guess it depends on the kind of work that you're doing, but for me, you know, doing interviews with people in their own space, you don't have a whole studio. You don't have a ton of, and usually you don't have a ton of time either. And most of the time I was working alone, so I had to schlep all the stuff. The other thing that I do in addition to filmmaking and storytelling and production is I play the drums. I grew up in a musical household. My dad was a band director, and the drums were my instrument. So I've got a lot of experience schlepping gear. You know, film gear, drums. Same kind of technique. But anyway, yeah, I think just having this type of setup is extremely effective in creating that warmth and that dimensionality.
And then the altitude of the key light.
Yeah,
That's a good reminder.
absolutely.
Yeah, the
For
altitude
sure.
part,
Yeah,
especially with the glasses.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been doing this for years. I didn't realize that specific thing. So thank you for sharing.
I don't know. I can't remember. You know how it is in life. You kind of learn different things.
Yeah,
And,
along the way.
yeah, the glasses. I mean, a lot of people have them, and you know, me included. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, you have to deal with what you have, and oftentimes you don't want to ask somebody to take them off,
Right?
Because
right.
that's not them. I mean, for me, like when I first started with Ben, I didn't have glasses.
Yeah.
And I was teaching, and Emily, I can't remember her last name. Richardson, yeah. So Emily Richardson. Here I was saying, so class, yeah, let's. And she said, "You're really close to the screen." I said, "Yeah, I am. Have you got your eyes checked lately?" "Oh no, I haven't." So anyway, now I got glasses, now I can see. Sometimes, you know, there's a reason for things.
Right.
Okay, how are we doing there?
I was going to mention with the altitude of the light, though, be careful not to go too high with it.
Yes.
Because then you get the shadows from people's eyebrows coming down in their eyes, or you know, their hair or whatever covering their face.
Absolutely.
Owl, raccoon eye,
Yeah.
kind
Yes.
of things.
I'll give you another little example of why you don't want to go too high. So I'm not going to name names, but the statute of limitations is probably worn off. So I worked with a salesman, and he was selling video production, and he said, I want to learn what you guys do. So can I come with on a couple of shoots? I was like, oh, okay, I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, what can I do to help? Well, I'll go set these lights up. So he puts the lights up as high as they can go, and it was in an interior space, like in an office.
Oh no.
And it was right near the sprinkler
Oh,
system.
no.
And, yeah, you can guess what happened.
Of course.
That definitely did not help things.
That's the way to start.
Yeah, right.
Destroyed all the
And-
equipment.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is introduce the fill light. And as you can see, instead of a reflector, I'm shooting through it as kind of a diffusion piece, because that's one thing that this allows you to do. So we'll introduce that, and it is pretty bright initially, but see how it brings the real harsh shadows. Let me do a before and after. So here's a before. You've got that real dramatic kind of effect, which I think that's okay sometimes. But if you wanted a softer, kind of more balanced effect, that lessens the shadows, and it doesn't compete with our rim light here, our hair light, our backlight, which is you still got that dimensionality. And I think this is a classic technique. Let me talk about two other kind of comparisons with lighting definition. So there's a technique that we call high key, and then the conversely low key. So high key is oftentimes associated with certain genres of production. So comedies, or like your daytime television stuff, game shows, the news. It's bright and not dramatic. I mean, you can see everything. So the next time you see, I don't know if you ever watch like The Office or any comedy kind of shows like that. It's always bright and it's high key lighting. Low key, on the other hand, is more dramatic. It's your adventure, your horror, It's funny. One time, it reminds me. I had a life-changing experience in my time during at River Falls in 2013. I should preface this by saying one of my mantras is "nothing ventured, nothing gained." I mean, you never know what can happen in life unless you try, right? And nothing to lose, everything to gain. So I had this opportunity with the Academy of Television, and they're the big Academy Award people, to get involved with this faculty fellows thing. And I thought, well, I don't know if I have a chance for that. I'm not like a NYU film school, Spielberg or anything, but whatever, I'll just throw my hat in the ring. And to my surprise and delight, I was selected. And so I went to Hollywood on their dime for a week, and I got to meet tons of big shots working in the biz, including directors, writers, cinematographers, and network with people. And I asked, when I found out that I received it, the conditions were it was a once in a lifetime, literally, because once you get it, you can never do it again. And I thought, well, I want to take full advantage of this. What can I do to maximize the experience? So they published the names of all the people that get it before. So I got in contact with as many as that I could, including more UW people, so that they can kind of relate. And I said, what kind of advice would you give to me, having done this before? What can I do to make the most out of this? And they said, one word: network. And so if you can't tell, I'm kind of an eclectic guy. I'm kind of a weirdo, and I like to do weird kind of different things. So one of my other hobbies that I'm into is I'm a gangster. I'm in a gang, the John Dillinger gang. I'm a reenactor. I dress up like a gangster and get killed and rob banks and come back to life. So I'm a gangster without the side effects. But I really like the aesthetic of the 20s. And so Boardwalk Empire is an HBO series that I really liked. And it had kind of this historical, granted there was some embellishments, but that's for entertainment. But Nucky Thompson, the protagonist in this film, has this cigarette case, and everything's stylized. And I don't smoke, but I thought, wow, that'd be a cool business card holder. So I like to go to swap meets and antique stores. So I went to the Hopkins antique store and I found one of these antique cigarette cases. And I went and filled one side with my business cards and the other side was empty. And I said, my goal is I want, when I come back, to have it be the opposite. And it was. And I met I can name drop a few people. Like Michael Lang is one of the big time directors. He's directed everything from Buffy the Vampire Slayer to Criminal Minds to X-Files, and he was just one of the nicest down-to-earth people you could ever meet. And we really hit it off, pretty well, and exchanged business cards. And I had him as a guest speaker via Skype at River Falls one time, and then all the faculty people. So I've gotten to be friends with some of them, it's just, it's like anything in life. It's not only what you know, but who you know. And so any opportunity you have to network with people, you just don't know where it can lead. But anyway, the reason I bring that up in terms of lighting is when I was there, I met a cinematographer, or director of cinematography, that was a cinematographer for American Horror Story and Glee. So
Yes.
talk about high key and low key lighting. If
Yeah.
you're familiar with those, so American Horror Story is a you know, a horror,
Yeah.
very dramatic,
Wow.
you know, dark, and then Glee is this upright, you know, high key kind of fun, you know, upbeat kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, you know, using light, how you can have that communication just, you know, with the way that things are perceived, and it helps to reinforce the content of the story just in, you know, how it looks. So
Eric, just to let you know, we got about 45 minutes.
45 minutes, perfect. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about the 3-point lighting so far? I mean, this is basically the 3 points. Now there's one more point that we could bring up, and Ben said we have some gels,
Yeah.
just to kind of replicate that example on that video. So adding dimensionality is the key here. I mean, that's what you want to go for. And one way of doing that is splashing some color. So color symbolism is something else that, you know, it's psychological, and you can think about, you know, when you see certain filmmakers use colors as a way of communicating different things. And I did a documentary project I did when I was in grad school. I decided I wanted to use a red gel to illuminate every interview, and it was just a color scheme that I went with in all of those things, and then, you know, the logo design, and it just had this, what we call a motif effect, which is a repeated theme. And it was using a colored gel, and regardless of wherever I was, it just had that continuity. You know, hey, we're in the studio, hey, we're at the Triple Rock, hey, we're in the basement of the Turf Club, and I could illuminate those spaces by using a gel, and it would just pop. It would just bring the background to give a different quality to it, and then have the person that's being interviewed, you know, pop and separate from that. So then could we aim that back towards the curtain?
Yeah, I'm going to just mention a quick safety thing with these particular lights.
Yeah.
Since they do get so hot, you want to make sure that you use the barn doors relatively wide open with these when you're doing the gels.
Yes.
And then the reason why is you want to clip it to the edge of the barn doors as far out as you can to allow some airflow to go between the light and the gel, because that will help cool down the air in between. You can see right here, this piece is melted. Like you can see that back there. That I don't know when that happened or what light it melted on, but at some point it got too close to the light and it melted, and they'll melt very fast, and you'll smell it and you'll be like, uh-oh. So just be careful with that. And generally, clothespins like these usually work the best as well because they're wood, so they're not going to get super hot. Obviously, plastic clips are going to melt and metal clips are going to get hot. So these work pretty well, also known as
C47s. Have we heard of that one before? You hear the story about that, why they call it that? So back, you know, like I said before, in video and film, everything's specialty, and you can, you know, get reflectors or go to Cinequip and buy a pack of C47s for, what is it, $5 a piece? Or you can go down to your local box store and get 50 of them for $5. But back in the day when the catalog came out, they were a clip on page 47, and so they just called them C47s for short. Supposedly, that's the urban legend. But yeah, they definitely do the trick. And yeah, that is so cool. So right there, could we do a before and after? So here's before, and there's an after. And just having that little bit of blue makes it really pop. I mean,
So
it's
pretty.
beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
It is pretty.
Yeah. And it just gives that, you know, cinematic effect. And like I said, color symbolism.
Yeah.
Talking about, you know, not to get too deep here, but when you're thinking about the foreground and the background, think about what color clothing they're wearing. And so we've got this idea in film, especially, not so much in documentary, but in filmmaking, where, you know, the cinematographer and the lighting designer, the set designer, really puts a lot of thought into, you know, costuming and props and the background and stuff. having a dramatic contrast between the background and the foreground is really a great technique if you can, if you're in that position, if you can manage that, and it has, cool colors versus warm colors. There's kind of this, I guess it's a psychology, reference again. But yeah, anyway, back to the just use of gels and illuminating the background. It can take, and this is a really great space. I mean, this is about as good as it gets. We're in a studio space, but the goal with this setup is you can take this anywhere, out in the field, not the cornfield, but the field, in life, and light it up. I mean, we could go out in the hallway and do it. We could go downstairs. We could go to somebody's apartment, and as long as you can separate and have space between the background and the subject and where the lights are placed, it's going to look way better. And by using color, it transforms the space. Because that's the other thing. Even with like documentary work, oftentimes for me, I didn't have a choice of where I was going to interview the people. It was like, you're going to interview them here because that's where they are. Right. So just by adding a little color makes it look way more aesthetically pleasing.
So would you use that gel if you didn't have the 3 lights, if you just had your key light? Is there use for gel? Or
Should we try it? Just see what it looks
Yeah.
like? Let's just use the key and the gel. So would you mind turning off that one, please? Okay, and then we'll turn this one off. Look at that.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
That's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, really, has that dramatic pop effect, and
Yep.
back to that kind of low-key lighting. If that's a look you're going for, which, I think it looks great, and it definitely, what happens is by turning that backlight off, is it's not competing with this light. So could you please turn it on again? So there, even this is a really great look. It's still dramatic because you've got, but you've got that clear separation. So what happens here is, since you've got that texture in the curtain, which personally I really like that, it gives some dimensionality to it. You've got highlights and shadows that are accentuated, even with this setup. But having it off, it just makes it more a deeper tone and more dramatic. Yeah.
Would you adjust this at all if you were using the green screen? And how do you play with the background?
Yes, green screen, that's a total different deal. But I can talk about that real quick. So the key to a green screen, or chroma keying, is eliminating any shadows or highlights. You want it as flat as you can get it to get what we call a clean key. And also, it's the separation from the person to the background. It would be interesting, if you were in front of the green screen with that chrome green shirt on, back in the day when I worked at Town Square, we had these kind of a volunteer giveaway, prize kind of thing. And did you ever meet Toby?
No.
So Toby was a guy that I worked with. He still works there, great guy. He had these magic pants that happened to be the same color as the background. He said, "Hey, we got the magic pants today, and look at I've got the cloak of invisibility." But that's what I would, in terms of a green screen effect. You still want some dimensionality, and that's how the use of the backlight and a key light. But the difference is that, if at all possible, you want to pull that person as far away from that background as you can, because you want to make sure that the background is lit in a way that doesn't have any shadow. And of course, if you're closer to it, you're going to have the shadow of the person in the background, and it won't key as clean. You'll have some fragmentation. It won't turn out as like that you'd like it. So in green screen setups, oftentimes they have kind of even lighting, usually from the top down. But that's kind of how they do it. We
There's our green screen light set up right there.
Oh, cool! Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, high key.
Our green screen's behind that gray curtain, by the way.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Yeah, nice.
Let's see.
We did a.
It's gonna be way too bright on the cameras right
probably.
Yeah. Well, perfect right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would key very cleanly.
Yeah.
And you still, even though that's on, we've still got a little bit of highlight and shadow going on. The way that we would get it a little bit more is just pull them forward a little bit and change the closeness of the lights. But yeah, that's how you want to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, green screen is so flexible in what you can do with it. I mean, you know, you can use it for you know, infomercials, or you could use it to, you know, go to outer space. But so really, you think about the application of it. And then in that case too, you know, using colored gels, not green but a different color, would help to kind of make them pop or you know, be separated from that green background. So how would it be now if we just looked at a little video, we let our lights cool down,
Yeah.
and then see how much time we have. And if if there's a takeaway, it's just the fact that you can take this on the road. You know, a key light and a backlight. I mean, that is the essence of taking a okay looking video and just bringing it to another level. You know, bringing it to be way more aesthetically pleasing and pop and more professional. Whew. All right. Thank you. Sorry to keep
Cool.
you hanging back there.
All right.
So it'd be cool to take this out and
Yeah.
plug it in.
I think so.
Thank you.
Here, let's stop this.
With the unmute the TV.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here. So let's back around.
It's interesting, you know, the timing of this. So there's this great class that I teach that's been kind of a number of years in the works called Web Series, and it was a kind of a born out of a collaboration where we had 3 separate classes. We had a script writing class, we had an acting class, and then we had my filmmaking class. And we had the script writing class create some original scripts. We cast those scripts to the actors, and then our filmmakers made films out of them. And it was so popular that we decided to run it as a combined class. So we have all those people in one class, and it's an upper level class, so it's like really, you know, it's the top of the food chain when it comes to you know, work. It's intense, but it's really awesome. And we over time, anything you have to, you know, be creatively resourceful, but especially in higher ed, for some reason, the money doesn't always filter down to where it needs to, so we have to, you know, kind of, like a lot of people in life, you know, get creative with how we, you know, maintain and get our stuff. So we had a deal with Red Digital Cinema, who is one of the premier manufacturers of camera equipment, and after 3 years of borrowing a Red camera for free, we finally convinced the powers that be that it would be a good investment to get a Red, and they came out with one called a Raven, and it was so popular that we had to be on a year waiting list. So anyway, this is the first time that our students have been able to shoot the web series with a Red Raven, which it's just amazing technology. However, there's this old acronym called GIGO. Has anyone ever heard of that? GIGO? Well, in the biz, now I'm an optimist, so I'll give you the biz part and then I'll put my own spin on it. It stands for garbage in, garbage out. So it means that if you don't light it, if you don't pay attention to the aesthetics of it, it's much post-production as you do, it's not going to look that great. However, conversely, good in, good out, that's how I like to look at it. So if you light something, you spend some more time and placement and details, by the time it gets to post, it's going to look amazing. And with the Red camera, it's extremely, it shoots what we call full frame video. So kind of equivalent of how much power it has is, I went out to this convention in Las Vegas about 3 years ago with some students, and they had this setup with the Red camera with fashion photographies from Vogue and some of those magazines. And the fashion industry was getting into using these cameras for still imagery because they could take one still from the Red and blow it up billboard size, and it wouldn't have any signal degradation or anything like that. So anyway, with the web series, we were just getting into the importance of lighting. So I'm going to take this back and say, hey, look what you can do.
Yeah, with the Red Ray.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
okay, so yeah, let's take a look at. So we looked at 3-point lighting, and that's, you know, mostly talking head. But this is some other ideas of getting some classic film looks with similar types of technology. Oops. Let me back that
just
up.
on mute.
Oh, we're on mute. Okay, here we go. Let me pause this for a minute. Let me. Where's the mute button here?
Might have to point it.
Yeah, you have to get up there.
Oh, there we
it
go.
is.
Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, let's take a look. And I disclaimer: I did not produce this, nor do I have the rights to this. But in an educational setting, it'll be reciprocal because you're going to get their little ad at the end.
Now, there are a million ways to light a scene, and I'm not saying that this is the best way to light a scene because it isn't. The best way to light a scene is whatever way best communicates the story. In fact, if you want to know more about that, go to the video down below. But no, today I'm going to be talking and covering how to light what is traditionally called the cinematic look. And of course, if you want more tutorials that'll help you take your lighting to the next level, subscribe to Aperture, hit that notification bell. Tip 1. Use your key light to make a brightest part of your frame. Now, step 1 for lighting the cinematic look is to use a soft key light that isolates the most important part of your frame. If you have actors, this will usually be someone's face. Now, why is this important? Well, as we know, since our eyes are drawn to the brightest part of any frame, by giving your audience a clear, bright place to look, your lighting guides the eyes of your audience in a clear and concise way, telling them where to look. Number 2, go low key. If we're talking about 3-point lighting, this means either lowering or completely removing your fill light. Generally speaking, while your fill light is important when you're shooting corporate videos or comedies where lighting is intended to look naturalistic, if you're going for the cinematic look, it generally looks a little more dramatic to have less fill and less lighting in your shadows. Now, this will give your subject more contrast in the lighting, which again, while it may not always be the correct choice based on the story, is generally considered to be more cinematic and beautiful. Tip number 3, shoot into the shadows. Now, this tip is super simple. Basically, if you're shooting a subject, especially an actor or an actress's face, the tip is to design your scene so that your camera is shooting into the opposite side of where your frontal key light is coming from. Now, the fundamental idea is also super simple. Whereas shooting into the lit side will generally result in more even and frontal lighting across your subject because of the angle, by shooting into the shadow, your camera is then positioned in a way that is able to better capture fall off and the shadowy textures that your light is able to make. Number 4, use an edge light. Now, beyond using your key light to make the most important subject the brightest part of your frame, the next step to crafting a traditionally cinematic image is to use an edge light to separate that very subject from the background. Now, the resulting effect is something like a halo or a wraparound light that helps shape and outline where your audience is looking. Tip 5, light for depth. Now that we've carefully emphasized and outlined the most important part of our frame, now is when we can have fun with our background. Generally speaking, since the most cinematic images are the ones that seem to create a sense of space rather than looking flat, you're going to want to create depth with your lighting. Now, the easiest way to do this is by layering your highlights and your shadows through lighting and through space. Now, I know that this sounds complicated, but the underlying goal is simple. Try to light your background elements in a way so that each plane of distance from your camera has a different illuminance value. Now, especially if you can get the highlights and shadows of each plane to contrast each other, the resulting effect will be a picture that possesses the illusion of depth and space. Number 6, add color contrast. Now, whether you like it or not, saturated color contrast is a look that is visually in right now. And this works wonderfully for crafting that traditionally cinematic look. Specifically, the deep blue and orange is perhaps what Hollywood is best known for, but the key takeaway here is to choose any colors that do have strong color contrast. Specifically complementary colors, which can really help make that image pop. Brownie points if you can get these colors to stack in the same way that you would light those highlights and shadows to create depth. Number 7, add texture in your lighting. Now, there are a lot of ways you can do this, but the final 2 touches for creating that traditionally cinematic look in lighting is to add just a little bit of lighting texture. Now, on the lighting side, this could be as simple as using practical lights that are already in the setting, desk lamps, neon signs, or maybe even the headlights of a car in the distance. However, if you don't have those things, you can always try adding your own texture like light slashes, fluorescent tubes, Edison bulbs, or even a string of Christmas lights in the distance to mimic a distant cityscape. Now, if you want to get super stylized, you can consider using a combination of haze and hard light to create shafts and pillars of 3D light. And on the other side, number 8, you can try adding texture in your shadows. The other half of adding texture in lighting is creating visually interesting shadows. Backlighting set design elements like blinds, window frames, or tree branches are all really easy ways to add visually interesting shadows into your scene. Or if you really want to get fancy, you can also try using a cucoloris or a light that accepts gobos to create other interesting shadows into your scene. So there you have it. There's 8 ways to light for the cinematic look. But what's your favorite tip or trick for lighting this look? Leave a comment below, and the best trick will win Aperture F7. Don't forget to hit that notification bell.
I think this contest is expired now, but anyway, we got the information, right?
Yep.
So if you noticed in our cinematic approach, there were some similarities of what we were doing before. So using the key light to light the face, to make that stand apart from the background. Using the colored gel to transform the space, and like I said before, it's not just what you see but what you don't see. So keeping the magic alive by shooting to the shadows, to have things that you direct the eye to what you want them to see versus seeing everything. And yeah, I think that bottom line, like they said at the beginning of this video, is what is the best is what works the best. And a lot of it is really experimentation and working within the space, because that space and the distance between your subject, your light, the foreground and the background is essentially what it all boils down to. So does anybody have any questions or things that you have burning in your mind?
Why is the gel called a gel?
Whew, that is a great question. I think it's probably, now I'm not an expert on this particular question. I mean, fortunately we have this thing called Wikipedia, or we could look at, but I'm guessing, what I would guess is it's the material that it's made out of. So it's kind of a gelatin-like, I mean it's not gelatin like Jell-O, but it has this plastic type of thing that isn't real, like it's not like, so that plastic that we used before isn't just any normal plastic that you'd get covering your salad. It's specialty material that's designed to withstand more heat and light. And I think also it's the luminosity, so how much light is let through and how solid that color is. But I would challenge you, why don't you look that up and let me know, because then I could report it back. I think that's a great way to spit it around. But I totally, so my grandma kind of inspired this. She lived to be 100 years old, and she was a school teacher way back in the day, and she always said anytime that she didn't know the answer to something, she would look it up, in particular words. She was a word, that's probably why I won the 8th grade spelling bee without studying, because I just, it's inbred in me. But anyway, I think it's great to come up with those questions and also research and come up with your own conclusion, because oftentimes, there's more than one explanation to certain things. Any other questions? Well, one thing I would like to just throw out there, and this is a take it or leave it thing if you're interested. So we have this great tradition at UW River Falls that is this annual event that Ben is going to be participating in this year in one capacity, called the UW RF 48-hour film competition. And this is something that is patterned after a national contest where teams of people, and in the national one it's mostly professionals or aspiring professionals, get together and compete against other teams to produce a short film in 48 hours. Mm-hmm. And the way that it works, the competition side of it, is they show up and they randomly are assigned a genre, a prop, a line of dialogue, and a character, and that guides the content of their film. And then they have 48 hours to write,
sound familiar to me?
Act, and do everything, and then come back and then have a panel of judges look at how they did. And so we've got this event coming up on this Sunday at 7 p.m. At UW River Falls. It's the UW. I mean, if you want, you can write this down, or I can give you free tickets.
That's the screening part, right?
The screening part, yeah.
Is it just students that can get involved?
Yeah, it's just students that can get involved for now. We are considering kind of what you've talked about with the high schooler category, because I think that's one thing that, well, we're in the business of recruitment, and not that it's high school specific, but high schoolers are our demographic we're going for. But anyway, so this Sunday at 7 p.m. is the screening event for the 48-hour film competition. And I'll give you free tickets if you want. It's really my business card, so if you want to get a hold of me, you can. But I'll put those there and invite you if you're at all interested. It's open to the public. We've got this. It's called the University Center Kinney Theater, and it's like a big theater where we project the films. And then we've got Ben and some other alums that are working in the biz that are going to look at these submissions and then award Best Acting, Best Technical, and Best Directing. And then we've got a People's Choice Award where we've got like a smartphone app. So we're going to screen all these and, hey, what's your favorite? And then we've got, we like to, it's bragging rights mostly, but we partner with Nikon and Red Digital Cinema with some little swag and prizes.
Like a red camera?
No,
I'm kidding. Oh my God.
That comes up. I try to, I'm a cheerleader if you can't tell. I try to, get the students hyped up and say, see that box there? Those are the red prizes. Like, oh, is that a camera? Like, well, you're gonna have to wait and find out. But no, it's not. It would be nice.
Yeah.
But yeah. But anyway, if you're interested, I'd invite you to check that out. And it's just a way to kind of, connect with the community. And the bottom line with everything that I teach is the practical application of it. How do you apply this in the world? And with classes, kind of like this, it's designed to plant a seed and inspire you to take this knowledge and do something with it. So hopefully, you learned a thing or two, and I'll look forward to Ben's links to seeing your amazing award-winning work with your informed lighting.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you so
my
much,
pleasure.
Erik.
I
That's-
appreciate
that's
it.
excellent. And we just have just a little something for you to say.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, I appreciate it.
We appreciate you being here. It's been really great. And that's pretty much it. That's all we got. If anybody else has any other questions for Erik or for us, we'll be here for a little bit. You guys you're welcome to hang out and chat a little more if you'd like. And thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
And just so you guys know, like the practical use of what he taught us today, that was the. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the shot. Hi. I used all those rules when I was framing and lighting my piece that got that Emmy recently. So it works. It works and it looks good. And so please do it. It'll make your productions just that much better. So great job, Erik.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate
learned
it.
from you. So that's awesome. All right. Well, cool.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.